E7 idea for I don't know how many games, probably 3 games. So yeah, it has. I mean, Italian is quite confusing. I've spent I don't know how many hours on that, and I could probably say, and I proudly say it, I still don't understand a thing or two. It's just impossible.
I'm glad that you said that because I'm not an Italian player, but I've watched a lot of Italian games and I'm still none the wiser. Like, I'm not really sure like why the pawn on A5 is better
Then A6.
than A6.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that A5 has certain consequences. The bishop can now go to B5, but I'm not sure whether this is a good plan. I'm also not really sure like what kind of plan White should be adopting as well, you know, especially where to put the knight there on the queen side.
Yes.
Miro, are you the...
Yeah, obviously I'm a proper person to ask. I have no slightest idea. Well, from my experience discussing this position with some top players, they are not that far off from our knowledge. Being in the lines better, but I'm not sure if they know the reasons why, you know, the fashion changes. Because there is, honestly, there is nothing wrong with good old A7, A6, bishop A7 line, right? There is nothing wrong with what else they were trying. Bishop B6 is the move, right? Yeah. H6 sometimes is the move. H6 before castle, A5 before castle. So it's a multitude of systems. And there is no clear answer why this one is bad or this one has to be preferred. Well, so there are some guidelines as far as I understand. Like, for instance, black playing bishop to E6 and trading the bishops taking with the pawn. There is a secret to it. In some positions you can do this. In some positions it's considered to be something not to do. So it turns out, I was told by Alexander Grishchuk, who understands chess quite a bit, that if you chose to play with A5 and you are stopping B4, then you can play bishop E6 and take with the pawn. If you double your pawns, you go bishop E6, and at the same time you let white grab the space on the queen side, this is considered to be not very good. But once again, they're not very good. It's, you know, some centi-pawns difference in evaluation, which for us mortals, I believe, doesn't really change much. So I believe what white does usually is all the same. So hide the bishop, bishop B3, bishop C2. That's what he started. Bishop goes to C2. Knight will go to D2, F1, G3, and eventually he tries to play D4. So that's pretty much where my knowledge stops.
I know one little rule as well, that white tends to be better in these type of positions because their light squared bishop, even when tucked away, after the central expansion, will be better than black's bishop.
So
there's also that small piece of knowledge, but as to which piece configuration white should be going for, I'm not really sure. You know, the traditional way for me is always knight d2, knight to f1, and then the knight will get to g3. But these days, you know, I've also seen bishop g5 be a very trendy idea. Right. Whether it's valid in this particular position, I don't know. But bishop e6 coming. So Grishchuk's advice was spot on.
Yeah, yep. Bishop e6.
So after this bishop e6, now it's a question for the bishop on b3, right? I think when you moved it to b3, you're intending to hide it on c2. Usually when it hides on c2 like this, it gives time for black to reroute the knight to e7, to g6, and then after that, maybe like something like c6, rook e8, and then pushing d5 itself. So, you know, both of the sides, white and black, could actually employ similar ideas, similar strategies where to put the pieces on the board and so on. And I just learned something, that if Miro is kind of quiet, it's getting dangerous. So
no, not really, not really. No, I'm trying to think, like, if we are, you know, discussing in such categories, like why white is better or can possibly be better. I think that there's one very important factor that people kind of tend to forget about all these positions, and Ruy Lopez as well. So it's a knight on c6, restricted by the c3 pawn. So this is where it starts. So that's why, like, very often positions with d pawns swapped are somewhat better for white, right? So when you've mentioned, Irene, that knight to e7, knight to g6, yes, that's a very common very common maneuver. But after bishop c2, the move that Hikaru just played, I think an early knight e7 would allow d4. So it's kind of, you always have to have an answer to d4. It's not like d4 wins the game, yeah, but you have to keep in mind, yeah, d4, what do I do? Because now, if you, once again, I want to suggest a move, but I don't know which move. Let's say you play h6, if we could move, yeah, like h6, stopping knight g5, for instance. I think d4, one thing you could do with black is to take back and go knight b4 and
Black's only hope is that he's managed.
Oh, right. So after knight d3, right?
Are you saying rook takes bishop?
You can take and
an a6. Yeah. The knight is not quick enough to catch it.
So that's why he played a5 so confidently, because I wasn't sure. Yeah, but a5.
Once you see that Hikaru is doing this mirror, tick, 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 yeah, you could be quite certain about it.
There's no miscalculation going on. No, Hikaru is a great calculator, and yeah, great spot there from
So what
Hikaru.
do we have?
But maybe black can play bishop to c4
now.
Not,
Well,
not immediately.
not immediately, Obi.
That means the game's over, right? I mean,
I used up so much of my energy yesterday finding the best moves. Now I'm gone.
You're back here.
You're back here, and I'm showing why I'm an international master. Just inconsistent. Okay, yeah. Okay, the move the king.
Oh, then
The handshake,
handshake,
that is it.
yes.
Hikaru
Yeah.
that
wins.
sealed it. And yeah, Hikaru won both games and is 1 point ahead of Magnus Carlsen.
He is 1 point ahead of Magnus Carlsen, but it's still very much early days. And it's nice to see Hikaru and his opponent analysing there. And that means we should move on down to some other games.
To Anish game.
Yep, let's head on down there.
And that bishop on e2 is very doomed. Yeah, it didn't move. How many moves have it been? Like,
Since
it's still
move
there.
6.
Since move 6?
I don't think it ever moved from
Wow.
E2.
It's not a,
So,
And now it's already move 40.
and yet they've just reached the time control. So